Hello, I'm Anna, founder of Anaderio, a brand specialised in leathercraft and the chair of the Youth Board for QEST. Today I'm with Lisa Montague, the CEO of Sanderson Design Group and the chair of trustees for QEST. Today, to mark International Women's Day, we are going to be discussing the things that connect us, the legacy of British making, the importance of craft in an era which goes faster than ever, and of course the power of female leadership.
Hello everybody, thank you Anna for inviting me to come and chat to you today. I'm very excited about our conversation. As you know, my background was in fashion and luxury leather goods for years, and so craft has always been at the heart of what I've been doing in my day job somehow. And now I've got this wonderful marriage of the things coming together, of chairing the trustee board of QEST as a charity, fundraising to make craft sustainable for the future, and at the same time as CEO of a business that designs and makes. So I believe it's the perfect world for me at the moment. I'm also working with Walpole on the board to support British luxury. So it really makes a nice full circle.
It's a great way to connect all the dots. You've led some of the most iconic design houses in the world, and now you're the QEST Chair of Trustees. In such a digital world, why is it so important to still maintain alive the human touch of craft?
I think precisely because we're in a digital world, the human touch is becoming more important to everybody in society. And that, according to futurologists, will only grow over the next 10 years. It's a little bit like we refer, certainly at work, looking at our archive of design, for instance, you see these major shifts in economic times, and there are cycles of economic downturns, societal shifts, global unrest, and so on. And people return during those times to trying to find a movement, not only in art and design, but for lifestyle. And so, you know, we had the Industrial Revolution, we had the arts and crafts movement in ways as a response to that. This feels like a movement that is a response to the digital age. And I predict that our human instinct is to respond by returning to the appreciation of the value of the skill of what we add as individuals, and what we can appreciate as the value of the handmade, highly skilled, considered, cared, made with intent for a purpose.
I couldn't agree more. I think that human touch transforms an item from a mere object into actually an item of sort of personal history in some way. And I think that the word feeling is so important, both for the person who's making the item, but the person who consumes it as well. That built to last mentality within craft is something that I believe we both value. So how can we keep encouraging people to pick maybe one beautifully handcrafted piece over 100 mass-produced items?
I think the movement towards the creation of authenticity, integrity, and just the joy of appreciating beauty, whatever that means to you, are all part of the appeal of taking home a precious, beautiful, handcrafted piece. To behold its beauty, to appreciate its story, to its individuality and the value, the care and the skill that's been injected into that to create its own origin through the hand of the maker is very special and creates an emotional bond with that piece, and therefore its lifetime appreciation. And of course, you know, each piece is usually by definition individual, and so to understand its story, how it came to be, why it exists, what was in somebody's mind, but also what's in literally the eye of the beholder as well, is a beautiful story when it comes together. And often that's the reason that somebody wants to be part of the story of that object and give it its future. I think sometimes, yeah, they're actually undervalued, which is horrible, because crafts people often don't value their own time the way I think they probably should. And so, because it's not a commercial venture, often you haven't got a CEO running a company looking at the margin, and that's something that we could improve, because there is and there should be a premium to the time and the labour and the care and the skill that has gone into it. As a maker and a designer, with your own business, how do you value your time and how do you communicate that?
I think it's probably one of the most challenging questions, actually, and that I've learned a lot throughout the years that I've been doing this to understand a little bit about valuing, as you say, the time and the detail that goes into every stage. However, I think when it comes to talking to a customer, it's really about clear communication, a bit of storytelling, as you say, and very much about transparency. So being open to show that process, being open to explain and spend the time with the person who might have questions, who might have doubts, or maybe don't fully understand how that item's made, or really how much time is involved. I do believe that through that communication, you open doors to new possibilities and new mindsets when it comes to approaching the item and consumers being more willing to pay that premium. So I do think that the time element, even though it's something so precious that we don't always have, but just that little bit of time can influence a lot in mindsets.
Yeah, I think in luxury goods, we're all taught to sell the dream. If somebody can't emotionally connect, then you lose them in the communication of value, because it's a high ticket item. But there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And that's where it is hard to get across. And I think when it's so personal and individual to you, it must be really challenging. It's probably something we should run some masterclasses on.
Definitely. It's hard to sort of try and get someone to think exactly how you're thinking. I think that's a pretty much impossible challenge, but it's trying to be as open as possible for people to be able to introduce themselves into my world, for example, of how I approach concept development, where my inspiration comes from, so that they're not seeing just the final item, but they're seeing the whole process from what sort of got me excited at the beginning into how to get the final result, to do with the technique and the craft and the skills involved, maybe even the tools that I've used. People love seeing a little bit of that process because it's what makes that item unique, which other sort of more mass-produced items don't have that story attached to it.
That's really interesting. So they can touch and feel.
Totally. I mean, for me, it's really important, especially with a bespoke project, that clients feel that they're part of the whole process, that it's not just about their want or their need and then they see the final item. I want them to be involved because as much as it is a project where I'm trying to bring out what's inspiring me and what I enjoy, it's also about them loving and enjoying the item just as much as I do. So it's got to be that mutual sort of collaboration, especially when it's a bespoke piece.
So they can tell the story.
Definitely, yeah, and they become sort of proud of it. I can think of people who, you know, I work with leather, and that sometimes raises questions and conversations, and it's so interesting how people just in that communication time, they sort of become leather lovers, and then post having a piece, they actually start telling me about other leather items that they've been enjoying or looking into, and it's quite nice to build that bond and that relationship over craft.
Yeah, you get all the senses going.
Definitely. Looking at the work we both carry out with QEST, what do you think the most important thing is for the young generation of makers to see from us as leaders?
I think we need to make everybody aware of the many opportunities there are out there, and people who are, as I said, in our network, supporters of developing craft and the value of craft, are working together to bring opportunities. So we, for instance, at Sanderson, in a small way, 2 years ago, initiated the Rising Star Craft Award. We've supported Rising Star Design Awards previously in other areas. So this is Rising Star Craft Award with QEST, because we felt that something like that was actually missing for somebody who's already established in their practice, already recognised as excellent, may have been a scholar, not necessarily, but established, but takes them to another level where they can really finesse their craft. And Hanny Newton was our first winner. She's an embroiderer. She had classic training through the Royal School of Needlework, and is embroidering with straw. She's used I think it was £25,000 prize to really develop and expose what she's doing to a new, wider audience, and to develop more broadly her craft. So she's now growing her own crops to embroider with.
Wow.
And partnering with people to make sure that because sustainability of supply for her was a big issue. And so that's really rewarding to see how that can develop. I just saw that House and Garden, Condé Nast publication, is launching a new craft award. They announced it at the Collect show. So that's now open for people. I was more than 10 years ago now, 2013, at Loewe, we launched the Loewe Craft Award, which has become quite famous in its own right. And it's really significant. We knew it had to be significant from the beginning. It needed to be international, and it needed to be a significant amount of prize money to resonate. And that has become highly recognised as something to really to aspire to. Going back to resources, QEST Directory is something I'm really proud of, and how we can internationalise that, because as I said, raising funds here is very difficult. You know, if we could get eyes on America, where there's a great move towards architectural conservation, conservation in general, that perhaps we can expose our talent and skills, you know, also transatlantic, you know, across in international markets, which would be amazing. And that's something that Loewe Craft Prize sought to do then and has done very successfully. So I'd like the QEST Directory to be an internationally renowned resource. And of course, it all comes back to education. Yeah. So whatever we do, we have to start with education, and we have to go back into bringing younger people through with awareness and training to get to this point.
Definitely. I mean, education is the base of it all, but then I agree that the opportunities can really launch people into that next level. I guess it's that aspiration of craftspeople not to just feel that they have to survive, but very much become sort of global leaders of the market, and being more international is a huge way of doing that as well.
Yeah, you know, we need people like you, Anna, to develop and to then be our champions, our ambassadors, you know, to see the success inspires everybody. And so, you know, it's another demand on your time to be out there, you know, for the community, as well as, you know, running your business and being inspired and seeking your own inspiration in other places.
Definitely. But I think that's really rewarding, in fact, because you're surrounded by other people with the same passions, whether they're craftspeople or just, you know, other parts of the industry. But that's what really does keep you going and puts that time into to keep sort of growing and expanding the horizons within sort of your craft.
One of our initiatives for young people with QEST is the partnership with National Saturday Clubs. And I think this is particularly inspiring, run by the wonderful Lucy Kennedy. And she instigated this for 13 to 16-year-olds. So to amplify the opportunity, and it's identified by school teachers usually who spot talent in students at school, but they don't have the opportunity to take that forward and support them. But National Saturday Club does then partner through opportunity with a local college or university in the area. It gets out through the regions. It's a wonderful program. I'd love to do more. We currently have 12 craft and making clubs running, and it really is, you know, everywhere across the country in communities where we can support people from the age of 13 and give them the awareness, but also the hands-on practical skills to develop so that they can experiment themselves and to really understand what handmade is and means, and to be proud of that, to be part of those stories of creating. This next generation is discovering beauty through new eyes, not because it's being passed down, but because it's being discovered. And that makes it more exciting, and if you like, more accessible, more attainable, because it's a generation that's going to own a new way of doing things, a new way of making, which then, I think is very exciting. And that's something we need to capture, embrace, and take forward.
If you look back at the beginning of your journey, what would have been maybe a piece of advice you would have given to Lisa at that stage?
I think persevere, follow your dreams, work hard, take the opportunities, and also take every opportunity, even if you think you can't do it. Because sometimes to boldly go, I've just said yes, say yes to everything. Say yes to everything. I went to, start initiatives and landed in New York to run an American. I had no idea. I was terrified of failing. Why would anybody give that to me? And I think it's just because they know I just go and grasp it and deal with it and find a way through. And that's very exciting. And so to step out of your comfort zone, to go beyond what you think you can manage or achieve is also something that I think we should push ourselves to do. Really look forward, take the opportunities, scan the horizon for opportunities, and just jump in and have a go is really important.
I agree.
What's the piece of advice you'd give yourself, Anna?
I feel like I would tell myself a lot of things, but if I had to narrow it down, One of my biggest lessons that I've learned and that I would love to sort of bring back a few years is to not wait for it always to be perfect and to really just go for it. And that half the time when you think things aren't quite right, they're actually in the perfect direction. You worry so much, but actually when you get to the final process, you realise, oh, it was all going smoothly. But it's, I think as creatives, we do care and we're so passionate. Sometimes that journey feels a little bit of suffering, but yeah, I've learned to
I think that's
say that.
so valuable. It's a true luxury, but in your eyes or in the eyes of an artist, perfection is probably never achievable. Totally. And you could torture yourself striving for it, and really it could become destructive. And so I think that's super valuable to say, let it be. Yeah. Call it. This is good enough to represent my work, and it will continue to evolve and develop, and that's fine. This is this piece at its stage of life now, and that's good enough. And may I ask you what's next? So what's your 5-year dream?
Wow, that's a very big question. I feel like I don't sit within one box. There's a lot of different dreams within my whole sort of story in the next 5 years. But I guess in terms of sort of my business is to be able to reach more people, hopefully make more for other people and have more available items that people can reach out, not necessarily just bespoke, but actually be able to get something that is accessible there and then. Very much as an artist and creator to expand the products that I'm creating leather innovations for, so not just clothing, but also maybe some interesting other routes as well. But also I think as a person to just develop sort of into a person who really does cherish that every stage, because I've learned that sometimes the ideas that I think are the worst are the ones that best work. Sometimes the things that I thought were right, then I realised needed more development, and to really just enjoy every minute of the process. I feel lucky that I get to do what I love every day, so I want to cherish that every minute I've got.
Good for you. And do you collaborate with other people to help move you forward?
So I am sort of in conversations with a few ideas and projects, but it's not something I've done so far, but I'm definitely open to, because I think that idea of collaborative work and the nurture of community is really important and sometimes drives even more innovative ideas. So I'd love to.
Yes, I think it can be a springboard sometimes, a real creative springboard, because when you appreciate your work through somebody else's eyes, it gives you a new freedom sometimes.
Definitely.
So worth exploring.
This year's International Women's Day theme is Give to Gain. So we've talked so much about community working together. What would be sort of your 3 words that you would like female craftspeople to sort of keep in mind within their journeys?
Well, I like a little alliteration. So I think for me, courage is at the root of everything. Being brave enough to move forward and to pioneer something. That commitment to that, to one's own intent, to be committed with confidence, and connectivity to connect to the world, to the networks, and to use that connectivity to create a power to move forwards as a base. And how would you take your 3 words?
I guess my ABCs would be ambition. We've spoken about that idea of perseverance, keeping going, seeing the bigger picture, the dream, and being a dreamer. I think that's what I see as ambition. I would say bold, so being fiercely unique, being yourself and being proud of whatever that is for each person. And very much collaboration. So again, on the theme of this year, it's so important to realise that even if you do work a lot on your own, maybe as a craftsperson, it can be quite a solitary career at some times, but actually there's such a big world around us with so many different people, and that power really becomes a big force when we work together.
I think they're quite aligned,
yeah.
And I really wish us and our communities every success in that.
Thank you so much, Lisa. The conversation has been enlightening. It's really got me thinking a little bit about sort of how to move forward within the world of craft and really about the power of connectivity. You can read the story of our conversation on the QEST website, as well as learning all about the programs and partnerships involved. Thank you so much, and happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. Happy International Women's Day, Anna.